the agencies, but the number of people up here today are just representatives of this multi-jurisdictional task force that the grand jury has been able to utilize. I want to start off with thanking, first and foremost, my counterpart at SLED, who is the top cop in the state. Our office relies heavily on SLED, and I want to thank Chief Mark Keel for his leadership and the engagement of his agents. Thank you, Chief, for you and your team. Obviously, former employee, but also more importantly, a dear friend and colleague, the Director of the South Carolina Department of Corrections, Director Brian Sterling, standing right over to my left. You're going to hear from Director Sterling in just a moment. I'm sorry, I'm at that age now where I could read off every single name here, and I don't know if everyone wants their name read, but I do want to identify a couple of people. We also have the Anderson County Sheriff's Office has sent a Representative Agent Velez. Easley Police Department has sent Agent John Hamby and Agent Bryant Gibson. Spartanburg County sent Lieutenant Joe Ferris. We have the Pickens County Sheriff here today, Rick Clark. Sheriff Clark, where are you? Right behind. Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you, Sheriff. Appreciate you for making the long drive to come down here, and we appreciate your leadership up there in Pickens County. I know you brought Captain Chuck James. Drug Enforcement Unit Commander Bart McIntyre is represented here today, as well as with the Counter Drug Task Force, the commander, who's also in the National Guard, Lieutenant Colonel Brian Juzeski, and I want to thank him for being here representing that organization. And of course, there are a number of SLED agents here with Chief Keel, and like I said before, without SLED, we would be a dead duck in the water in the AG's office. So we appreciate all of their support. I really want to go ahead and jump into a year and a half ago. We started this we started off with the first round of indictments in Prison Empire, and if you'll go ahead and click forward, you'll see that totally, to date, we have 100 defendants that include 487 charges alleged and 297 counts. That is up from 53 defendants with 191 charges alleged and 120 counts. So this new round of indictments has just nearly doubled what we had accomplished before. This has been an ongoing investigation involving an intricate web, a conspiracy of drug trafficking, gang activity, just a very vast, robust criminal enterprise. Before I go on any further, I want to say something. If you've read our press release, this could not occur if it wasn't for the fact that people, when they go to prison, are allowed to communicate with people outside of the prison walls. It is unacceptable. And Josh, go ahead and click to the next slide. When you look at what we have seized from people who are operating both within the prison, there's been 100 defendants. 10 of these people are SCDC inmates. We have seized 20 kilograms of methamphetamine, 5 kilograms of heroin, and 1.5 kilograms of cocaine. You look at the history of this investigation, that's just what we have seized. The conspiracy includes probably over 1,000 kilograms of methamphetamine that have been trafficked into South Carolina, over 20 kilograms of heroin trafficked into our state, and over 18 kilograms of cocaine trafficked into South Carolina. We seized 82 firearms, and again, like I said earlier, a number of these defendants are in the Department of Corrections. And I know that Director Sterling and his team are doing a great job keeping the public safe with physical barriers, with physical walls, with rebar and concertina wire and fences and brick and mortar. But a physical wall is no longer good enough. If it wasn't for the fact that inmates can get a hold of contraband cell phones, they continue to run their criminal enterprises. A lot of these gang members go to the South Carolina prison system, and the prison system is now an incubator program for their criminal enterprise. They're growing their drug enterprise. And so prosecuting these folks and indicting them is not a deterrent to stopping them from conducting these large, massive scale, complex criminal enterprises, these drug trafficking criminal enterprises. And again, it's no fault of the Department of Corrections. Director Sterling and his team have worked very, very hard to keep people safe and to keep these folks inside. But when you can't jam the cell phones, when you can't put up, and the technology exists, We just got to have the approval of the federal government to be able to do it. But until we can do that, we're going to continue to deal with this type of issue in South Carolina. Again, massive, massive amounts of drugs are pouring in to the state of South Carolina. Again, you see the numbers up here on the screen with the amount of drugs coming in. I want you to look at the numbers of the law enforcement agencies that are collaborating and coordinating with the state grand jury here in the Attorney General's office. That's a list of them up there, and I'll put their names up on the slide because, and you see the men and women up here today, I want you to understand that we're out there working hard to investigate these cases, to catch these crimes, to prosecute these crimes, and to keep these people in jail. There are 2 people in the list of 100 defendants who we're seeking life without parole sentences, and these are from cases, from other grand jury cases unrelated to this. These are people who were getting hit on 2 strikes, 3 strikes. They were busted in other cases. They're still in prison. They don't care. This isn't stopping them. And that is why I'm calling on our friends in the federal delegation of South Carolina to do everything that they can to help us change federal regulations that prohibit us from jamming cell phones. And I know that Director Sterling will have a little bit more to say about that in just a moment. I would also like for you to look at a list of the crimes that you will find over my right shoulder on the screen up here. Obviously, you have a lot of trafficking cases, trafficking meth, heroin, cocaine, distribution of controlled substances. You've got burglary, kidnapping, possession cases, conspiracy, assault and battery, and it goes on and on and on. There are nearly 20 crimes listed up here that were wrapped up into this Prison Empire state grand jury case. Again, enough is enough. Enough. And again, until we can jam these cell phones, we're not going to be able to effectively stem the tide of drugs pouring into South Carolina. It's not just the drugs, it's all the other crimes that come along with it. Like I said, burglary and kidnapping were crimes that were committed on people on the outside because of they were interfering with this conspiracy. So again, as complex as it is, we could not have been as successful in stopping this stuff from occurring. Now I want to emphasize one other thing. Until these people are convicted in the court of law, they are presumed innocent. So we're going to give them that presumption. But at the end of the day, you got one screen that's streaming and scrolling pictures of all the drugs coming in, and you got another screen that's showing the list of crimes that are being committed. Until we have cooperation from the federal side, it's just going to be incredibly difficult. We can continue to investigate and prosecute, but until we're able to jam those cell phones, these gangs and a lot of these inmates are going to continue to conduct their illicit criminal enterprises outside the office, outside the prison system. Now I'd like to call on Director Brian Sterling to give him an opportunity to come up here and address you.
Thank you, Jim. Thank you for your support on this very important issue. I'm Brian Sterling, Director of South Carolina Department of Corrections. December of last year, we had the largest RICO case in state history, which was brought by the federal government. Sprawling criminal enterprise where 4 inmates were charged using cell phones to orchestrate murder, kidnapping, firearms distribution, and run an international drug operation. 40 total people were indicted. Today, Prison Empire is the largest narcotics ring investigation in the history. 100 people indicted, 6 inmates. Indictments allege drug ring was run from inside the prison with gang involvement, ties to international drug dealers, and also an allegation of someone working in a law firm to smuggle drugs. The inmates that are involved in this matter had a combined 39 cell phone or social media charges against them while they were incarcerated. Since 2015, the department has found over 31,000 cell phones or accessories. This just has to stop. My grandfather was a policeman. My great-grandfather was a policeman. When they would arrest people, they knew those folks were going to prison and they were likely not going to be able to harm anybody and re-victimize people out in society. Unfortunately, because of technology and this device right here, that's no longer the case. As you see with these indictments and what General Wilson said, they can go to prison, we can indict these folks, and the folks standing behind me can no longer feel that once they put someone behind bars, they are not going to be able to continue to commit crimes. We've asked the FCC to interpret the law. The law says a legal signal cannot be blocked. I would make the argument this is not a legal signal. This is an illegal signal for illegal purposes, as we see today. If you look at all those crimes that are up there, think of how many people's lives have been ruined. Think of the families that have been ruined. Think of the people that have been victimized. Think of the houses that have been broken into. It just has to stop. The presidents and boards of Verizon, AT&T, Sprint, T-Mobile, they should be ashamed of themselves because they are stopping this from happening. They are stopping public safety from being effectuated by arrests. We need to have a hearing in Congress so the prison systems across this country can tell Congress exactly what's going on. We can tell them that these phones are harming their citizens, harming their voters, and I want to hear the other side get up, hold their hand up, swear in the Bible, and swear to tell the truth. Because I know it works. We know it works because we did a jamming test a couple years ago at Broad River Complex where it worked and there was no bleed over. This thing about bleed over is a red herring by the industry. They know it works. The federal government can jam signals. Why can't the states? We need a hearing. We need it now before more crimes are committed on the citizens of South Carolina and frankly across this country. Thank you, General.
Thank you, Brian. And I seem to remember you telling me about that test y'all did where you had your phone here and you couldn't get a signal over a carpet square and you got a signal.
I stepped into the dorm and the phone didn't work anymore.
I was thanking a lot of people earlier and I neglected to thank my own team. I want to give a shout out to Josh Underwood. Josh is probably one of our most prolific gang and drug prosecutors, and there's no one in the state of South Carolina that knows how to use the grand jury more than Josh when it comes to gang and drug prosecution. Obviously, many of you have heard from Creighton Waters in the past, who is head of the state grand jury prosecution team. And of course, Josh will be assisted by Johnny James and John Conrad, also in our state grand jury, and David Fernandez. So we got a great prosecution team, and I want to thank them for all their hard work. They're with the SLED agents and the prosecutors we got using the grand jury, they are really doing great work. But like Director Sterling said, I wouldn't be surprised if there's a third iteration of indictments in this ongoing case. Again, until we can stop and jam those illicit cell phones from being used, these people are just going to be able to go into the prison system and continue to conduct this illicit activity. One interesting thing, and I'll shut up and take questions, but one interesting thing is one of the outside defendants was a paralegal at a law firm who was sending in, would take a transcript, hollow it out, put methamphetamine in it, and then cover it back up, bind it up, and then mail it into the prisons. That was how one of the outsiders was using the mailing system, in addition to cell phones, was using to get drugs into the prison system. And again, two of the inmates that were picked up for bond hearings were found to have cell phones and methamphetamine on them. So again, this is a real problem in the South Carolina prison system. And again, they can do a lot to keep people behind physical walls, but until we have that virtual wall, the state really isn't going to be safe from this type of activity. So I want to thank all of you for coming here today to report on this. We're really proud of the accomplishments that the grand jury and all the other agencies have brought here. But I'm happy to take any questions that you might have or feed the questions over to people up here on our team.
What do you think needs to be done? What do you think specifically you need to do maybe to advance this issue? Obviously you said that the cell phone companies are fighting you guys on this tooth and nail. How can you get this out and try to get it to Congress and advance this more?
Well, I mean, it's a great question. I'm calling on the South Carolina delegation to Congress and the U.S. Senate and other members of Congress to use their influence to do the right thing. Again, the technology is there and I understand, I agree with everything Director Sterling said, and I understand the industry's concern that they have raised, but we have proven time and time again that the technology is there to carve out a specific area, geographic location, and it doesn't bleed over and prevent other people in adjacent neighborhoods to prison systems from having their cell coverage disrupted. The technology is very precise. We can do this. We can do this. We should do this. I'm calling on Congress. I'm calling on federal regulators to do the right thing, and I'm calling on members of the telecom industry to, rethink their position. And again, I know a lot of these people. I've got nothing personally against them, but you know, we just disagree on this one issue, and I really do believe they need to sit down with members of Congress and need to carve out an exception and allow these jammers to go into effect. Any other questions? I want to thank all of you for being here today and for covering this, and again, stay tuned. I'm sure there will be a lot more to come in the future. Thank you, and have a great day. Additionally, I will say this, on our website, I didn't do this, but it's a 33-page document, and it has the 100 defendants. It has all the defendants, all their charges with the maximum exposure they have. It's pretty thick, and I got a copy here if anybody wants it, but it's yours. It's also in a link on our website where the press, the media section is. You can get it there. Thanks, guys.